The wind clawed through the cracks of Toma's hut. His fingers were stiff, his breath a ghost in the air. No fire, no wood, and the storm hadn't even hit yet. Most folks today, they'd freeze or fumble for a dead lighter. But Toma, he reached into a cloth pouch, pulled out something strange. A mushroom, charred, hollowed at the center. Inside it, a glowing ember still alive. It didn't look like much, but somehow, that little thing could hold fire better than anything he owned. This wasn't luck. It was a medieval fire-keeping system, one built long before matches, yet clever enough to outlast most survival gear today. And here's the thing. One day when the power's out and the cold creeps in, you might need it too. Fire wasn't just comfort in the Middle Ages, it was life. But keeping fire alive through rain, wind, snow was no easy task. And when matches didn't exist and every spark cost time, people had to be smart or they didn't survive. They didn't rely on luck. They built systems. Today we're going to look at one of the most clever fire-keeping methods ever used. It came from the forest. It fit in your hand. And some say it kept people alive longer than firewood ever could. Toma didn't sleep that night. The wind clawed through the cracks of his hut and the rain hammered the roof like stones. By midnight, his fire had died out, leaving nothing but a pile of dull gray ash. The kind of silence that comes when the flames stop. It's colder than the wind itself. But Toma didn't panic. He had something better than panic preparation. From a cloth pouch tied to his belt, he pulled out a strange piece of dried fungus. It looked almost like a burnt sponge, black and rough and light as air. To anyone else, it might look useless. To Toma, it was survival. This fungus is called amadu, and it's one of nature's quiet miracles. When cut and dried properly, it can hold a glowing ember for hours, sometimes days. Toma had carved a shallow bowl in the center, making it the perfect nest for a coal. The trick was simple: place a tiny ember inside, wrap it in moss or cloth, and let it smolder like a sleeping heart. That night, he gently scooped a spark from the ash bed. It was barely alive, just a faint red glow. He placed it inside the fungus, covered it with a thin layer of moss, and wrapped the whole thing in his spare linen. Then he tucked it close to his chest, letting his body warmth keep it alive. By dawn, the rain had stopped, and the world was gray and wet. Toma unwrapped the bundle, blew softly onto the center, and smiled. The ember was still glowing, quiet, patient, ready. With a handful of dry grass and one steady breath, the fire came back to life. This technique isn't just a story. When scientists found the body of Ötzi the Iceman frozen in the Alps for over 5,000 years, he was carrying pieces of fungus just like this, charred, hollowed, and carefully wrapped in leaves. It wasn't an accident. It was a system passed down since the Iron Age, used by early hunters, and still taught in 13th century monasteries in the Alps, and still used by hunters, monks, and travelers through Europe's harsh winters. Think about it. We panic when the power goes out for just a few hours. We rely on lighters and matches. But what happens when they fail? Toma's ember trick isn't fast or flashy, but it's reliable. A single glowing coal can survive the night, the rain, and even the kind of cold that kills fires in minutes. It's more than a survival hack. It's a reminder fire isn't just about sparks. It's about patience, memory, and knowing how to keep the flame alive, even when everything else wants it dead. Today, some bushcrafters and off-grid campers still use amadu. They know what Toma knew: one ember carried right can outlast your fancy butane lighter. So next time you think survival is about gear, remember this: sometimes all you need is a mushroom and a little bit of wisdom. Toma didn't know the science behind it. He didn't need to, but what he held in his hands was more than just dry fungus. It was a natural insulator full of tiny air pockets that trapped heat and slowed down combustion. The amadu didn't burn fast like wood. It smoldered slow and steady, like it had all the time in the world. Modern chemists would call it low thermal conductivity and controlled oxidation. Toma just called it what his uncle taught him: don't let it flame, let it sleep. And after years of practice through rain, snow, and storm, Toma didn't need to guess. This wasn't a trick. It was survival. And he had it down to an art. Toma didn't have a survival manual. He didn't have YouTube tutorials or fire starting kits. What he had was memory. passed from calloused hands to cold nights, from failure to fire. And today, that memory still burns quietly, patiently inside tricks like this. Not because they're flashy, but because they work. This isn't about going back in time. It's about learning what time has tested. A system so old it came from the forest, and yet still clever enough to save a life today. So if this ember lit something in you, don't let it die. Try it. Practice it. Teach it to someone you care about. Because one day, when the lights go out and the cold creeps in, you won't be reaching for a lighter. You'll be reaching for memory. And if you want to start learning survival skills, start with one. Master it. The Amadou Ember Core might just be your first step. If you had to choose one skill to learn for survival, what would it be? Drop a comment below. Let's build this knowledge together.